Hello! Today we are here to review my father's work. Not actually what my father did for a living.
Right.
The board game My Father's Work. And this was from Renegade Games, and it has been a new release from Kickstarter, but it's been sitting here for a while because this is an app-based game, and the app was not released at the time the game came out.
So we waited on it.
We waited till the app was released. And it sort of got released.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But before we get to that,
I was going to say before we get started.
Yeah, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be informed of more games like this that come out partially.
Because you can't wait for them. So exciting.
All right, so Rob, tell us more about this.
I can do that. So My Father's Work did and was released in 2022. The rank is 4,466. Got a pretty good rate, though, at 8.2. Designed by T.C. Petty III. Art by On Lee Art. Eric Hibbler. Darian Mamalidi. Janice Orban in Cold Castle Studios. Published by Renegade Games, as Randy said. Now, the MSRP is not available for retail yet, so the Kickstarter was $99. I saw it on Geek Market for $125.
Ah, okay. So let's go into quality of components. Now, I got to say, I was blown away when I opened this tray up. The tray has metal gears, really awesome metal money tokens. It actually has glass bottles.
That's the best component, in my opinion.
Potions.
These are amazing.
You have screen printed on both sides, wooden. You have animals and bodies, which are in their coffins.
Yeah.
The only thing that's kind of not impressive are the skill tokens, which are just
they're clear cubes.
Cubes. But yeah, I mean this, and it's all in a game trays tray with a lid that fits it and everything. These were just amazing.
Yeah.
The miniatures are also amazing. Not only are they crafted, each individual character. There's 6 characters, and you have those for the same 6 characters for all players, up to 4 player.
But they have a sun drop painted.
Sun drop makes them all pop. They just look incredible. All of the wooden tokens for the scoring are also screen printed, both sides. The only thing that was disappointing was the first player marker. Again, I had it written recently like this, where it's off center. It's not quite centered like everything else. But all in all, this is just amazingly done.
Card quality it's not, they're not thick, but they do have a finish to them.
They do have a linen finish.
But they're not very thick, though. The cardboard is pretty decent. You got your player board's got some inlay, which is nice.
The cards, the main cards come in a serving tray, which I like that. That was really nice.
The board itself, it's not too bad. It's in pieces, so that way I think it helps minimize the bowing.
Yeah, because some of it you have to flip, and also it's got a spot for the insert for the main, the book.
For the binding of the book.
The book is very pretty. It's got a gold lettering on the cover. And it's got all the different scenarios and outcomes from the decisions you make in the game. But it's got a real beautiful gold lettering on it. All in all, I think they've done an excellent job with this. Now, the only things I'm going to ding them on are these tokens that you put into the player board.
They're all top heavy.
They're all top heavy. Yeah, they kept falling over.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really easy for them to fall down.
The inlays are not deep enough where the wood that's cut in for the bottom doesn't sit in it all the way.
It's just a weird shape.
Yeah, they fall over constantly.
All the time.
Mine were the least problematic. They were actually not as top heavy as the other ones, but they were still problematic.
Mine were pretty top heavy.
Yes, yours were, I think, the worst. All in all, other than that, I really thought they did above and beyond on the pieces for this game.
Very impressive components.
I'm probably going to give it a 9.
I think so. I might just go a little bit higher with 9.5 just because I love the chemical bottles. I mean, or the potions or whatever. I think they were called chemicals, but it's just, I mean, they're just awesome. And I just could totally see even pimping this out a little bit more, which Randy said some people have, by putting something in it and making it look like it's got a chemical or something going on in there.
I'd be nervous about these corks holdings. So I wouldn't put any liquid in there.
Yeah, but you could glue them in place or something.
Yeah, I would go with something
like sand or some kind of like goop or something thick. And it just, I've been really impressed with it, with that part.
And I'm impressed with the gears too.
Yeah, the gears are great,
you think of,
and the coins are great.
The gears that came with corrosion versus these, where gears are the main function of corrosion. These are not the main function.
Yeah, you had to buy the metal gears, right?
Yeah, I ended up buying gears from Amazon that were better than
the cardboard gears suck.
Well, no, it wasn't just cardboard. You got the metal ones that came with like the upgraded version.
Yeah,
and they were not as nice as these.
Yeah, but so I think a 9. I think 9 is really good. So,
all right,
I love
it. So now moving on to the theme. Mm-hmm. So the theme of this is, basically you're in Victorian era,
late 1800s,
which your gothic stories that from the different horror genres you see out there. Obviously Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, all those kind of inspired this game, and especially Frankenstein. That's clearly the one that's the driving force, because it's my father's work. You're picking up their experimentation, and it oozes in this game. I mean, there's the app goes through the story, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure element to the game. Although the game itself is all worker placement completely, but you have to make some choices in the game, and they've come back to affect you either in this current generation or in generations to come.
Because you play through 3.
Yeah, you play 3 generations, 3 rounds each. So it's early life, midlife, and end of life for each generation. And you're basically trying to create as many experiments during that time to get your master experiment completed. And it oozes theme in this game.
My favorite part of the theme is it's very tongue-in-cheek. There's a lot of humor built in this game, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that part of it.
The experiments were hilarious. So
they were really good.
Some of them were, I don't want to give too much away, because if you do get this game, you're going to see a lot of it. You had some very thematic experiments,
and some dark humor,
and then you have common items that were being experimented and created, and that was great.
And it can be dark, but it was very funny.
Yes, lots of good humor in it. And in the story itself, you had some choices that kind of came out funny occasionally too. I mean, they weren't as funny as the experiments, I don't think, but they were pretty good story in there too.
Now, as far as the mechanics fitting the theme, I don't know. I don't really think that mechanically or with thematically for the mechanics, I don't think it didn't hurt it, but it didn't help it either.
Well, I mean, it makes sense you're going to do worker placement, because you have to send people out to gather your resources.
It does, but there was nothing innovative about it. So, but it worked. So I'm not counting against it. It just didn't blow me away either, as far as mechanics go.
Yeah, I mean, thematically, because of that, and the app obviously is integrated now. I will say the app needs.
Do we want to talk about the app during the theme, or do we want to?
I think it's theme and gameplay, but first of all, it really hurts when you get a game that's like this out and it comes in on your Kickstarter and it has to sit because
it's not just any game. This game had a lot of hype. I mean, a lot of people were really waiting for it just because it looks so amazing. And so when you get it and you can't play it because you want to experience the full game, and that means the app, and you can't, it's pretty disheartening.
And to their credit, they were saying basically they wanted to get the Kickstarters out there, so if you wanted to paint your miniatures and all that, you could do it before the app was out there. And they haven't got the retail version out yet, so I think they're making sure they get all the bells and bugs out of the game. I think that's before they release it.
I would have been more okay if the app worked well.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Yeah. So the app got released on iOS about a week or so ago. I heard about it on Board Game Geek, downloaded it on my phone, and then I was like, well, I'm going to go add it to my iPad. Well, you can't. It's not out there.
They already took it off.
So I don't know why it got pulled, but it's been removed. It's not on the Android. It's not on the iOS. There is supposedly a web version of it, but from what I was reading online, it's kind of buggy too. So the one that we got, it says at the beginning of it, do you want a male or a female voice? So I chose male first, and then didn't get any audio. And then I chose female, and I didn't get any audio.
Now that might have been because you just didn't know
Turns out it was because I keep my phone on silent mode when I'm doing recordings and all that. And apparently being on silent mode meant you did not get to hear it. No matter if you turned your volume up full, you didn't get to hear this game.
It did more, usually silent mode is just notifications.
Yes.
Right? But
it actually impacts
the volume
too. Yes.
So.
And I finally was like, I want to try something because the thing is some of the text will scroll on you while you're trying to read it. And it was like, why? It keeps scrolling. I mean, is it annoying? And I'm like, I wonder if it's actually saying something here. And sure enough, when I flipped that switch to turn off silent mode, I heard all the audio. The audio, however, the reading of it was very hard to understand.
It really was. It was very kind of monotonous in its tone. And and Randy said it sounded like the voice you hear at the elevator at the hotel we go to during Gen Con. And it did. It sounded like that. Kind of had like an accent, but you can't really place from where it's from. But because it was so monotonous and it read so fast without any inflection.
There were no pausing.
Yeah, there was no pausing. It's like one big long run-on sentence.
Yes.
And so because of that, it was difficult to understand, but it wasn't consistent either.
Right.
It didn't read everything.
No, it only read that scroll at the beginning of a generation, and then the next paragraphs come up, and I'm waiting for it to say something, and it stopped talking. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm back to reading it again.
And there may be some operator error because, Randy's not that great with technology. But at the same time, though, it wasn't... It didn't lend itself to being easily used either. And so I think that whether we operated it poorly or not, I think is moot. It's just that it wasn't a great experience with that voice.
Yeah. Now, it does immerse you. Like, you put your name into the thing and it will reference
and I like that a lot because there was actually one point where it specifically said, hand the storybook to Robert. And then I got to read it. And that part I really did like because... It did tell me to read it out loud, but it was like there's elements to the game where I might read it and I don't have to share it. And so that's pretty neat.
Yeah. So I thought they did an amazing job on theme, even though there's still some bugs in it.
I agree.
I'm probably going to give this a 9 on theme as well.
I think I'm just going to a little bit lower, 8.5, because I really did not like that voice that they used and how there was no pauses and it was difficult to understand. Mm-hmm. But blows me away as far as component quality, though.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the art, though, but I love the art.
The art is great,
too,
yes.
And I love the fact that depending on what the experiment was, the art in the background would reflect the outcome of that experiment.
And not only that, maybe I'll bump it up to 9, because one thing that I was impressed with is the map book itself. It changed color. So earlier in the game, it was really kind of dark because all this bad stuff was happening. But maybe the decisions we made, I'm not going to say, but maybe stuff that happened in the game, we flipped to another map page and it brightened up. So it actually, like, thematically, it fit with what was going on in the story.
More modern as your generations do.
So I was really impressed with that part.
Yeah, I think all in all, I think a 9 is a good score.
I think so too.
All right, so let's move on to the rulebook. So first of all, the rulebook is very pretty. It's got a nice texture on it. It's
got like that matte finish to it.
Right. Let's see, how long is this thing? 28 pages with front and back cover. The back has an icon guide. It's not really useful, but it's there. It's just got the picture of it and the name.
And it's really not even necessary. The iconography is pretty minimal.
It does come with a cheat sheet. The cheat sheet also has that. So, I mean, you really don't need the book for that purpose. And it's got kind of a reminder on your experiments, on what they do. It's got the turn sequence on there. Mm-hmm. We didn't really need to reference it because the game is actually self-taught pretty much. If you're familiar with worker placement games, the actions of this are very basic. Yeah. But the book is actually thicker than you would expect for what this is. And I think a lot of it is just trying to...
But there's a lot of artwork in it, and the font's not terribly small either.
But I mean, as far as the gameplay, it goes into, I think, excessive detail in some of this on what you do, which is probably better to have more than less. Yeah. But it was intimidating to read a 28-page rule book. And then, when you get to it, it's like, really? That's all there is to the gameplay, because all it is literally moving your workers and assigning them. You do need to know a little bit about the tracks, the Angry Mob track and the creepy track. As
they called it the creepy track.
And the Insanity track. It's not a bad book.
It's not an intimidating game.
Yeah, and it didn't leave anything out. There was no holes in it, I would say. The thing is the app guides you through most of it as you're playing. So, all you need to know is how do I take my turns and move my people to the different actions, and it's all in here in probably more detail than you really need.
Right.
So all in all, I think it's a fine rule book. I think it does its job, does it well. I'll give it 8.5. I think it's a pretty darn good book. Now on to gameplay.
Yes.
All right. So I think we've kind of got mixed feelings on this. First of all, you play this in 3 generations, as we mentioned.
Yes, and each generation has 3 rounds.
3 rounds. And those rounds consist of placing all of your workers and then passing, and you may sit out for after you've run out of workers, because you can play multiple workers on one action.
Right. And we are prefacing that we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail because we don't want to ruin anything.
Yes, we're going to.
So if you want to play
spoilers.
this game, it would be easy to ruin. It would spoil this game if we go into too much detail. Yeah. So we're going to avoid that.
The game has 3 different story games in it, with the preface that you're supposed to be able to play these multiple times. I'm not sure how much replayability this has.
I agree. I mean, even though we found out that there's potentially quite a few endings to each one, I don't know. It just didn't feel like it would be rewarding to play it through multiple times.
And it's basically the choices you make don't end up that differently.
Right.
You might get some different buildings or different tiles or different things that happen. But all in all, the story is going to force you through the story. It's not like it's a very divergent story. So that means you're relying on the gameplay, the actual actions, and to be interesting enough to carry you through. It's a worker placement game. So,
and like I said, there's nothing innovative about the actions that you're doing. I mean, we can go over because there's really 2 sections of that you do actions. You got your map board and you got your player board. And personally, I really liked one element of the player board, which is the knowledge skill tree section. So you can do actions to get knowledge. You spend that knowledge. You build up this skill tree that kind of acts like deductions for being able to do experiments.
Yeah, they give you, for every level you go up in a color, you have to, one of these skill tokens you have to spend to complete an experiment of that type.
And I really like that element because there's some perks for building that up too. But I really like the idea that you do this to do that. That gives you boons later in the game. Yeah. I like that element of it. But the rest of the action selection was pretty.
Yeah, it's basically go out and get the resources you need. Yeah. Or else you can go out and purchase another worker, or you can purchase an upgrade for your castle, which that also carries over. So I like that. You can go out and build up things that give you perks for your building of your castle. So that's kind of cool.
I think you really like the insanity track part of it, though, right?
Well, no, not particularly.
I thought you did.
No, the tracks are fine. Like the thing with the tracks is like the creepy track is you irritate the mob. So the angry mob comes down, and if it meets with your character, then at that point,
bad stuff happens.
You can basically it says in the main rulebook, you basically cannot go to the town. You can only go to the church in the town. After that, you have to play on your local player board. Right. So, for that generation. It's not just for that round, it's for the whole generation. So that's, basically the purpose of the creepy board. Now, the insanity board, when you go down that track, early in the track, it gives you perks. You get these cards that you can complete that give you kind of little tiny missions.
Yeah, and they're relatively easy to complete.
They're simple ones. Yeah. But, the fact is it may be distracting because you may not need whatever the card's for. And the thing is, if you don't complete them at the end of the generation, for every 2 of those you've got, you have to take basically a abnormality card or something like that.
Yeah, and I really lucked out on those because most of those insanity cards I got coincided perfectly with what I was needing to do for my experiments. Yeah. So when I got this one thing to do, complete my experiment, I was able to complete an insanity card at the same time. Yeah. Worked out very well. But I could see how that could be pretty brutal.
So the aberration, I think they're called aberration cards.
Yeah.
The aberration cards for the next generation, you have to suffer that penalty for the whole generation. Right. And we thankfully avoided them the entire game. So we didn't even know what they are.
Yeah, and we didn't want to look at them because we didn't want to ruin it.
Yeah. So we just thought that sounds bad.
Yeah.
So we didn't go for them. Yes. I think that those tracks were necessary for the gameplay, but I didn't find them particularly exciting. It was basically try to avoid it, because especially the insanity track, because like the early part it gives you perks, but as you get later on the track, you start losing things.
You can lose people, workers. You can lose
buildings. You can lose victory points. Yeah. It gets really bad. And especially towards the end, you can just keep bouncing and keep losing buildings and victory points. So you really don't want to move very high up that track.
And I think the commonality of when you got your city, that's mostly where you're getting your resources. Where your player board is, you're doing stuff with those resources. Right. And so, without going into any more details, so that which I don't think is necessary.
You do need to, for your player board, that's where you do your experiments.
Yes.
So you do need to know that. And it's also, you can exchange some of the experiment cards out,
right.
Or move, increase
and
your
you get
skills.
additional buildings that can help you. Some scoring, some in-game scoring. Some of it kind of helps you mitigate some of the costs and the requirements for completing experiments.
Right. So after your 3 rounds of that generation, the person that was your first adult life dies, and it's now the story of the next generation. I like the concept.
I do too. I think that if they would have done something like Legacies with the successors, that might have been a cool element.
Yeah,
so,
they added
something carried over,
differentiated.
Yeah.
But basically you have to pick up the notes from your father, which is the father's word, and then start again. So you lose all your money you've built up. You lose all your resources you've built up.
So unless you have buildings that break those rules, you basically start all over.
Yes, you do get to keep your castle,
and you get to
keep your statistics of what you built. Well, you get the 3 money every round,
right?
So you just get the new income.
But that's really it.
But that's it. Yeah, you also, any of the experiments that were completed during the previous generation, you only get to keep one of those completed ones to help you towards the future ones. And it's kind of a pyramid system.
Yeah.
So you have A, B, C tiers, and then you have D, which is your main project that you're trying to complete.
Work.
So in order to complete a B, you have to have an A completed. In order to complete a C, you have to have 2 Bs completed. If you want to build a
and
D,
the A.
Yes, and the A. And if you want the D, you have to have an A, 2 Bs, 3 Cs completed, and they get progressively harder.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but you can only store and carry over
so many each round.
1 per round, unless you've got a building that, again, alters that rule. So that was really tough. By the end, we all managed to pull off getting our major project completed, but it was a struggle.
Yeah, it took all 3 generations to get there, though. I don't see how you could do it any earlier.
Yeah, it was definitely tough. I like the idea of it, but it just felt like I'm redoing the same actions again over and over again. It's just kind of flat. Yeah. And it takes a long time. I mean, we started playing around 12 o'clock today.
Yeah, you would think basically 9 rounds wouldn't take that long.
Yeah.
But it took forever.
Yeah. And while you are waiting for your turn, there's a lot of text reading if you're using the app.
Like if Randy did something that required him to go to the storybook, which was the app, everyone else just sat there until he's done. He has a choice to share that information or not. So if he chose not to and he was just reading, we're just twiddling our thumbs.
Right.
And then, so unlike other games that you have downtime, a lot of those games you can actually kind of strategize and figure out, all right, well, Randy's doing that. Now I have to change plans to do this instead. Kind of like Power Grid or something like that. This doesn't have that. Pretty much, it's a solo game that you're playing with other people.
Well, and the other thing is, we thought you could just move on with your turn because it was like, well, I'm just going to do the storybook.
Yeah,
go ahead.
While Miranda's doing her thing, Randy could do his thing too.
But you can't, because sometimes the story will alter
change the board,
or change that person's turn where they get to do something else,
or they could buy like an extra building or something, which means it's not available to Randy.
And we kind of started moving forward, and then found out, nope, we got to reset everything and go back. Well, that was very annoying. So we had to pause and wait for everybody, because on that round, everybody had to hit the storybook and do their own thing. And it was just a slog.
It was a slog. It was a slog.
And I mean, it was... I really like aspects of this game a lot.
Right.
And then there's things like that just really hurt it, because now it's like, I don't see enough replayability in each story. I'll play it 3 times.
I could definitely see value in playing each story just to get that out. But playing through each story multiple times, I don't see any value in it at all.
And from all appearances, it looks like each story has 8 endings.
Yeah.
I really don't have an interest in seeing this other 7 endings of each story, because I just don't see enough difference.
Right. And you really don't have a clue on which decision is impactful to that ending. So like if you do play it multiple times, you'd have to remember, I did this last time, so now I need to do this to see if I have a chance of changing it.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah, because if you take the story out of it, it's just worker placement, basic worker placement.
Generic, yeah.
So I almost feel the same feeling I felt about Merchant's Cove with this game, where conceptually I love the idea of it.
Right.
But it feels like a gimmick once you get to playing it. And it's like, I'll play it a few times and then I'm done with the gimmick. And, I've just spent a ton of money on something. And these pieces are so nice. And yet I'm only going to play it 3 times probably. And that's very disappointing. I mean, granted, the price at $99 wasn't bad.
Yeah, really it isn't. Not with all that you get. And, 3 scenarios, I mean, that's not bad. But maybe if they could supplement it with additional, like, DLC or something where you don't have to buy more stories, but it can supplement what you already have, maybe I could see some value there. Yeah,
because, I mean, if I'm rating just the gameplay of this, I already gave it the high scores for theme, high scores for components. Gameplay wise, I'm probably 7. If that. It's just not that. If you just look at the pure game of it, I mean, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the app. I've already scored it for theme for that.
I think I'm lower because, I mean, if we base everything off Catan, which is our standard vanilla score of 5, I'm a 6 because there were interesting elements to it, but it didn't elevate it that much. So, I mean, it's better mechanically than Catan, but not by much.
Yeah, and the fact that it goes so long.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big negative for me. I like being occupied during my downtime, and you're not occupied during your downtime.
Yeah, and they do, to their credit, give you options to pause at the generation breaks.
That's true, but you said you have to print out the save
the app will save all of its details.
Yeah, but not like where your
stats, like if I want to put this away and not leave it on my table, I mean, if you got a table that you can just leave things on, it's not a big deal. But if you're not going to play it for a week and you've got it there, it's going to take up your entire table. So you'd want to put it away. Well, in order to put it away, you have to get a sheet from their website, PDF, print it out, download, and there's no sheets in the box. So you're going to have to.
But I think one good thing that, unlike some legacy games, is I think it would be really easy to introduce new people to it. So maybe not in this particular game that if you're saving it between generations, but when I'm done with this scenario and we start the next scenario, I think it would be very easy to, if someone stepped out and someone else stepped in.
Yeah, you don't have to play with the same people.
Yeah. No. Well, a lot of legacy games, you need to have the same people.
Well, this isn't a legacy game.
It's a campaign driven for sure.
It's campaign, yeah.
And it might have legacy
for each story. It's a campaign,
right?
Yeah,
but it might. But we don't know. And what we do here may affect other stories.
I don't think so. I think it's just pure campaign. Because if I reset and start and play it again, I can play exactly the same story, make different choices. It's not going to affect the other stories. But I do like the fact that it kept our scores at the end. It put our names in, put the scores in. It gave us who was some first player. But whether it's actually storing that for any purpose after that,
we don't know.
All in all, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I think it's a really interesting concept. I think it's beautiful.
It had a lot of potential.
I just don't see getting a lot of plays out of it. Right. And for the money, I feel like I got my money's worth in the components if I wanted to make another game with those components.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think a good thing about these type of games, this particular game, unlike some campaign-driven games, is that this would be easy to hand off to someone else. You don't physically affect the game. So you may be able to play through everything. It's like, all right, I enjoyed it. Now I'm going to give it to you.
There's no destruction of anything.
Yeah, so I do like that element of it. So.
One thing I forgot to bring up on the quality of components that's kind of a ding. They got these beautiful coins, 1s and 5s. With 4-player game, not enough 1s.
We ran out
repeatedly. And sometimes you had to vote with coin.
Yeah.
And there weren't enough 1s, so you're going to have a 5 in your hand. And what do you do when you're voting with that?
No, I'm actually doing a 4, but I don't have 4 1s, so I'm using a 5.
Yeah, I mean,
you
should have had way more 1s. I mean, there's not enough of these. We could not make it around the table with 2 income phases without running out of 1s. It just needed more. So that was a kind of a ding. But all in all, it's okay. It's not as good as I was hoping it would be for the beauty of it and the quality of it.
But by any stretch of imagination, it's not a horrible game.
No, it's not either.
So,
it's definitely
kind of
interesting, a fun game. It's just not not all it was. I thought it was going to be.
And maybe the hype was a little.
Yeah, I think the hype of the train was a little heavy on this one.
Yeah.
But, check it out for yourself if you're interested.
Absolutely.
It's definitely an interesting concept. It's beautiful.
And if you think more or less of it, let us know in the comment section.
Yeah.
We value that. We look forward to hearing what you guys think of the same games that we play.
Yep. All right. Well, until next time. Bye.
Bye.